Hello and welcome to another episode of Katie the Science Lady. I'm Mrs. Jacobson, and today we'll be talking about the two prokaryotic kingdoms of life. So let's learn together. Okay, let's go ahead and start talking about our prokaryotic kingdoms. So, when we talk about kingdoms of life, we have them split because we have 6 kingdoms total. The first 2 kingdoms we'll talk about today are prokaryotic, Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. And the main features of these are that they have no nucleus, they have no organelles, and that they're single-celled. So those are just features of a prokaryote. And that's how they're determined to belong to the bacteria groups. Remember, prokaryote and bacteria are the same thing. So if something is prokaryotic, it is a bacterium. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. If the word prokaryote confuses you or you're just not used to it, you can substitute it in your head for bacteria, and that's also okay. Our other 4 kingdoms of life are eukaryotic. We will talk about them in the next video, not this one, but those would include plants, animals, funguses, and a group called protists, which are kind of strange, and they're just all the other eukaryotes, basically, the ones that don't fit into the plant, animal, and fungus groups. Eukaryotic animals, or organisms, rather, have a nucleus and organelles. Say that. Our eukaryotic organisms all have a nucleus and organelles. So that's a big difference between our eukaryotic kingdoms and our prokaryotic kingdoms, is that they do have nucleus and organelles where prokaryotes don't. Let's quickly recap prokaryotic cells just to make sure that we're all on the same page. They are single-celled. This is the entire bacterial cell. It is one cell. So prokaryote could look like this. It will only have one cell. If it's multi-celled, it's usually not a prokaryote anymore. It's going to be a eukaryote. They just don't, their bodies aren't built like this. They divide by binary fission, where they split in half. So half of their DNA just splits, and then their cells reform around it. So it's pretty simple. There are other forms of prokaryotic cell division called conjugation, which involves the swapping of DNA between prokaryotic cells, but we won't talk about that here. And if you need to know more about it, the internet is your oyster. They do not have a nucleus. They do not have organelles. That's the biggest thing. When I talk to my students about it, I always say pro says no to a nucleus and organelles. So pro equals no. They don't have any of these things. They do have a plasma membrane, we call it sometimes a cell membrane, and a cell wall. So they do have those outer layers for protection, which is really important because a prokaryote is one cell. So it needs to be protected really, really well on the outside. And you can see that basic picture of our bacterial cell anatomy here. We have a cell wall. Sometimes they have a capsule, which is additional support for that cell. And inside here, there's no nucleus. You see just a nucleoid region, which is just an area that holds the DNA. So again, it says nuclei, which makes it sound like nucleus. It's not. It's just an area. It does have ribosomes and cytoplasm. Those are all kind of basic cell features. And again, it's free-floating DNA. It is not tied to a nucleus. It doesn't get housed anywhere or contained in anything. It just free floats around the cell. If we look at our picture here, I blew it up a little bit bigger for us. They have cilia or pili, flagellae. Those help them move around. So prokaryotic cells do need to move so they can get to their food sources, whatever they are, but they use those external projections to do that. So kind of like tails, they kind of help them swim through whatever substance they're living in. But again, nucleoid region, there is no nucleus here. We don't have organelles. We don't have like a Golgi complex or an endoplasmic reticulum or mitochondria or chloroplasts. We just have ribosomes, cytoplasm, and then that DNA that's free floating. When we talk about our prokaryotic kingdoms, the first we talk about is Archaebacteria. They're found in really harsh environments that we would not want to live in, harsh environments that most things don't live in. They could be sewage treatment plants, and the bacteria found in these are called methanogens. They do not need oxygen to survive, so they can live in really, really crazy environments where oxygen it just isn't. We can find them in hydrothermal vents where they're really, really hot environments where we would cook alive, but these bacteria can thrive, and they're called thermophiles or heat lovers. That's what thermophile means. We also can find them in very, very salty water. There are certain bodies of water on the planet that other life cannot exist, but these special types of archaebacteria called halophiles can exist. Again, halo would be salty, phile is lover. So it loves to be in that salty environment. This is really the only thing that sets Archaebacteria apart from Eubacteria. It's the location and the type of bacteria. Over here, we've got some methanogens. So this is kind of like some bogs don't have a lot of access to oxygen, and you've got a lot of like methane gases, different types of gases that are there. And those bubbles you see are going to be those bacteria producing some like extra waste gases. Over here, we have our thermophiles. So these are hydrothermal vents, really hot springs. And the orange around the outside, that's the bacterium. So not the blue is the water. But around the outside, that orange concentration, those are the bacterium colonies. And then up here, we've got our halophiles. You can see here that this water is salty because you can see salt deposits all around whatever this is. It might be a rock, but whatever it is has a lot of salt that's been deposited there. And bacteria can live in places like this where fish can't, where other organisms just can't survive. The second type of prokaryotic kingdom we're talking about today is eubacteria. Eubacteria is found in all what we consider normal habitats. Now, normal might mean our bodies, because eubacteria can live inside us, but that's more normal than a hot spring or something so salty we can't survive there. But that's what we mean by normal. They can cause disease. So these are the bacteria that can infect us and make us feel sick. These would include tetanus bacteria, E. coli, which you can get from food that hasn't been preserved correctly, or it grows on the food, and chlamydia trachomatis. So these are all different types of bacteria that could cause disease. On the flip side, eubacteria can also help us make food, which is kind of nice. So it can harm us through food, but it also can make delicious food. Some of the food that we are aware of, cheese is made with some bacteria sometimes. Yogurt is a huge one that's made with bacteria. It's one of the reasons why yogurt is so good for you, because it has those live cultures of yogurt or of bacteria that are going to help your gut, help your intestines, help you kind of process all this food, and makes you healthier overall. A lot of bacteria is used in food production for things like sauerkraut or other fermented foods. If you like kimchi, that's made by fermenting. So bacteria is used in a lot of these things. Some drinks using bacteria are also really, really popular nowadays. Kombucha is kind of like a tea combination that is super popular and has a lot of live cultures of bacteria in it. It also helps with digestion and decomposition. So digestion, we have bacteria in our gut that help us digest our food. And the more good bacteria you have, the less bad bacteria or harmful bacteria can grow. So you want lots of helpful bacteria in that area. It can also help decompose lots of different things. People use it in waste management. They may bring in bacteria to help break down old food and decompose it and make it really rich soil. It just depends on the application. We've got a bacterium up here, one that can make us sick. We have over here the back of a yogurt carton. So this is basically your Greek yogurt. And you may not have noticed this before when you've eaten yogurt, but over here, let me see if I can zoom in. It'll say that it has active and live culture. So it gives you all the different types of bacteria that are in your yogurt. So again, here ingredients is just culturized milk or cultured pasteurized milk. But there's these different cultures of bacteria in there that are going to change the milk into yogurt and also help with digestion and things like that. That's what makes yogurt so healthy for you. So we have some similarities and differences between our different types of bacteria here. So I want to go through the similarities first. So they can be motile or sessile. Some are non-moving, and the food comes to them instead. Energy sources. They can be autotrophic or heterotrophic. Some of those archaebacteria can make their own food from the different particles around them. So autotrophic means they make their own food. Heterotrophic means they need to consume something to get energy. We are heterotrophs. That's why we eat food. So that's just a good way to remember those. They're all single-celled. That is 100% across the board. They have cell walls to help protect them, and they have no nucleus or organelles. So those are all the similarities between our two groups of prokaryotes. Now, the differences basically just lies in where they're found. Archaebacteria live in extreme environments, while eubacteria are found in more common environments, like in our stomachs and our food. One of the ways I remember eubacteria is it deals with you. So if you were kind of thinking about it, you're like, yes, they live in me and in my food. So that's a good way to remember the difference between those two groups of bacteria.
All right, let's recap what we've learned today about the prokaryotic kingdoms of life. To figure out if something belongs in one of these kingdoms, we have to ask one simple question. Does it have a nucleus? If the answer is no, then it belongs in a prokaryotic kingdom, of which we have two. The first prokaryotic kingdom is Archaebacteria, and they're very similar to other types of bacteria, except for one thing. They live in extreme environments. They may live somewhere where it's extremely hot, extremely salty, or extremely chemical filled, or even somewhere lacking oxygen. So they live in these really crazy places where other life simply can't function. And that's why they have found their little niche and survived there very, very well. The second prokaryotic kingdom that we're talking about today are eubacteria. And these I kind of think of in a little bit of a strange way, but eubacteria live inside of you. That's how I remember these. These are our normal bacteria. They're the ones that can make us sick. They're the ones that can help us produce food, whether it's in yogurt and cheeses, or if it's in other fermented foods like sauerkraut. But these are our common bacteria. They live in normal environments, and we have many different species of them living inside our own bodies. For example, E. coli helps us digest things in our gut, and then another version of E. coli can actually make us very sick. So these are our normal bacteria. If you need to learn more about prokaryotes, please go ahead and click on the link for my prokaryote video that I made a couple of months ago. It goes through all the differences and similarities between prokaryotes and eukaryotes and talks about those specific features. That's it for today. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more biology videos. And as always, I hope you had fun, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you later.